Hello and welcome to the I'm Feeling Super Fantastic Awesome podcast. This is my first podcast ever, and wanted to, take an opportunity to thank people who encouraged me to do this. The thing about this podcast is, to spread positivity, to share the information. On how to stay positive through any circumstance. How that relates to stuff in my world, like sales and real estate and mortgage, but predominantly we want to focus on positivity. We had an interesting thing that happened to me 2 years ago, where I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And through the last 2 years of going through chemo treatment and radiation, so on and so forth, we've had some ups and downs and flows as far as the physical part of it, and sometimes, emotional. I have a lot of friends who are going through it. Some of them are just extremely courageous and very positive, and other ones find a struggle to figure out ways to be positive in situations. And then I also have other friends that are going through different things that find challenges to stay positive or remain positive in their life. Whether they're going through a divorce, they have other health issues, they have financial issues, job issues, family issues. Life is full of all of those things. And they sometimes come in waves, and sometimes those waves feel overwhelming, and you're trying to get up, and the undertow is taking your feet out from under you, and the waves are crashing over top of you, and you feel like you can't catch a breath. Hopefully these episodes and these opportunities to share information helps people figure out a way to get through it. But not only get through it, but thrive through it. Find something positive in the event. So I'll start out with sharing my story. I got a couple stories. The name of the podcast is I'm Feeling Super Fantastic Awesome. As you might be able to see, I have a t-shirt made of that. In fact, before I was diagnosed, I made 200 t-shirts. And I gave them out to all of my friends in real estate. And I started getting stories back from my friends of, their children or their sibling or their spouse, took the shirt because they were going through something. A couple of them were medical things. They were going through certain treatments of different varieties, and they would wear that shirt to treatment. And the responses that I was getting on how they would get positive reactions, and it would make them feel better as they were going through their situation. It really, it was surprising to me, but it was also enlightening, and it was something that I thought would be awesome to do. So I'm going to be generating a lot more of these I'm Feeling Super Fantastic Awesome t-shirts and hats and bracelets or what have you. And once they're up online, you'll have an opportunity to grab those. Maybe you have somebody that's going through it and you want to find a way to encourage them to stay positive. I'll be posting them on. They will be for sale, but the proceeds will be going to either cancer research or St. Jude's or something that would be cancer-related, breast cancer awareness, which, I have had families and close friends go through it. I have a friend of mine go through it right now. But we don't want to make it all encompassing about cancer. We don't want to make it all encompassing about one thing. But let's, kind of double back. The phrase super fantastic awesome is a phrase that I've been doing for 25 years. And I piggybacked off of an event where I went to, and I was an account manager at the time for a company called PHH. And I went to this big seminar, and I was one of 200 account reps, but I was the only one that was specializing in the thing I was specializing in. So, when I was there amongst my, my peers, this presenter came up here as a motivational speaker. And, his saying was he was Mr. Super Fantastic. And he would go about and try and make people uh, oh, try and make people feel great, because most people in responding when you're saying how you're doing, they're saying, I'm doing well, I'm doing good, I'm doing so. And he was adamant that those responses were something he had to do something about. So he came up with the term super fantastic. And the response he was getting was so great. And I loved it. I loved it so much. It motivated me. And what I would do is, once I came back from that seminar, that presentation, I was in my account management office, and every day, maybe a couple times a day, I'd have to go up to my sales team and see how they were doing, see if there's anything to do to help them, and then go to my processing team and see if they could help them and anything I was doing. And I started using the phrase, I'm super fantastic awesome. So I would go down the hallway, and most people walking in life have their head down. They have something going on, whether it's personal, whether it's, nowadays it's, people just head down and on their phone or looking at their phone. But I wanted to lift their spirits, or I didn't know whether they had something going on, but I just wanted to, I kind of wanted to engage them. So they were walking with their head down, and I was like, good morning, how are you doing today? And I would get, I'm doing well, I'm doing great. And they would, most of them would ask, how are you doing? And I would respond, I'm feeling super fantastic awesome. Thank you for asking. And I started getting these people to have their heads lifted and smiles on their face. And then I got to the point where I started counting, between the location that I was leaving and my office and going up to the sales floor, which I was on the first floor in the front of the building, and my sales team was on the third floor in the back of the building. I'd walk different paths so I could meet up with different people walking in the hallways. And I'd count how many times I could make people smile in a day. And it was a self-fulfilling thing for me. So it made me feel great that I can make a lot of people smile. And after 25 years, I'm known as, Mr. Super Fantastic Awesome. So I got to give kudos to a gentleman who brought that to me. And you know what? I'm going to search that, and I'm going to get you the name of that person. I believe last time I looked him up, he had passed away several years back. But again, an influence in my life that led to this channel of trying to be positive all the time. Because when I was young, I wasn't positive. I was not a positive kid at all. In fact, my mom would tell the story all the time, and I hope to have her on. She's one of my influences in my life, one of my strongest influences in my life, along with my father. But I would, she tells the story on, when I was in Little League, and how she got so upset and nervous when I was the last one at bat, because if I struck out and I was that last person at bat and the game was over, it would be a long ride home. And literally it was only like 3 miles to our house. But it'd be long because I would be livid and I'd be an angry little kid. And I'd have this tantrum of being just upset and inconsolable for a period of time. And that happened a lot. I was one of 6 siblings. And I was the spaz. I was the one that just didn't handle adversity well. And to get from that point to the point where a doctor would come in and did my colonoscopy, and that's how they discovered my stage 4 cancer. It was colorectal cancer. It metastasized to my liver and my lungs now. But to have that doctor come in and tell me I had cancer and not feel anger or hate or sadness, but have that moment where I could dial back in my life on how many blessings I've had from marrying my beautiful wife, my son being born, and we'll get into all those stories at some other opportunity, to, my career path. How did I get to where I was, where I really didn't have a focus as I was getting out of high school and taking community college classes, and didn't really have a focal point, working 3 jobs, doing different things. But through the years, I kept working on this positivity thing, trying to figure out ways to take circumstances that were not going well and looking at the bright side, or looking at a way to make them positive, or find a way to make a situation that wasn't where I wanted to be in life something I could use as a springboard to get to the next step, or the next level, or the next career path. And one of the things I would tell you that was very positive is, I always had the bravery of walking through, or the faith, if you want to get, religious or spiritual about it. When a door opened, then I would walk through it, and I have plenty of those stories to share as well. I'll also have guests, people who influence my life, people that I'm around right now that are positive people, people that I might have just met that are positive people, and find out their stories, because I'm always trying to learn and get a little bit more out of life, because there's so many things to be blessful for. As I say, you wake up, you thank, if you're religious, you thank God for the opportunities that you have in the day. And no matter what the day brings you, if it's a bad day, at the end of the day, I count my blessings, and I count anywhere from 15 to 20 blessings that I had within that same day of a bad event, or a bad set of circumstances, or, just one of those things that things didn't go your way. And I can always come up with at least 10. So the sandwich between being thankful in the morning and thanking my blessings at night, whatever happens within that day, that sandwich, that day sandwich, I can swallow anything. I can go to bed restful. I can go to bed peaceful. Of course, as long as you say it in a holistic way and like it happens all the time, but no, it's always a work in progress. It's always something that might get the better of you for a day or two. But you find opportunities, and I would say some of the worst things that occurred in my life ended up being some of the best blessings down the road. So, I'm overly grateful, and I'm going to be an open book. I'm going to tell you all the good and the bad and the difference, because that's really how you find your way. You don't ignore the bad things that happen to you. You find a way to make those things part of your character, and build on them, and find a way to make something new. Advance yourself, advance your, where you're at, advance your happiness in life. So that's where Super Fantastic Awesome came from. And I'm going to give you, since I talked about, having stage 4 cancer and being 2 years into it, on a positive note, I was going through a bad physical cycle, a lot of fatigue, a lot of stuff happening within my body that I was concerned with. I was talking to my oncologist. They recommended I talk to my colorectal surgeon, and they ended up ordering a scope. So I was thinking I was going to be like, something bad was going to happen, but I tried to stay positive, always, every day. Things that happen bad to you are usually just blips in the life. The doctor came in after the scope. My wife had taken me, obviously they're going to knock you out for this. And they said, the doctor was going through, I was like, oh, by the way, the stuff that was happening to you, like the bleeding, that was excessive. The fatigue, all of that stuff. Well, so the good news is you have no more bleeding. That's not active, it's not anything like that. You have lesions, you have this, you have that, nothing to be worried about. And you have an ulcer where your tumor used to be. And he kept going on about nothing to be concerned with. And I said, wait a minute, doc, dial that back a little bit. did you just tell me I don't have a tumor anymore? So my primary tumor that caused the metastases to get me to that stage 4 is no longer part of my challenge. So I'm thankful that I'm healed in that capacity. There's still work to do, and I'll still be focusing in on that. And I'm sure there's going to be ups and downs. But I'm so grateful that the steps that I've taken so far have led to one significantly positive result so far. So we'll keep at it, and we'll keep, fighting the good fight and winning the good wins. But back to the story. My wife and I was originally supposed to have my colonoscopy in April of 2020. And if you recall, in April of 2020, what had occurred, we were in COVID. And in COVID, we had, at that point by April, everything shut down. So anything that was an elective, and a colonoscopy was an elective, was shut down. And I never cycled back to doing it. That's the year I turned 50, by the way. So, that saying is like, when you're 50, you get your colonoscopy. So the mindset was, okay, well, we'll schedule it when it's free. And then it kind of procrastinated. I didn't end up getting it until 2022, the end of the year of 2022. And I was born in February. So almost 2.5 years, or over 2.5 years from the time I was scheduled to the time I actually ended up getting it. And my first thought was, oh man, if I only got it sooner, I would have found it before it metastasized and so on and so forth. And I was having that conversation with my brother-in-law, Matt. And, Matt responded, well, what if it wasn't there, right? I mean, it's been 2.5 years. What if there wasn't a tumor at that time? They would have told you to come back in 10 years. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. It was another acknowledgement that you can literally have multiple lenses to look at the same set of circumstances. And you have to be open to looking at those lenses. Because once he said that to me, I said, you know what? I could be in much worse shape because I didn't have any symptoms. The closest thing I could think of that was happening to me over that summer was I was trying to landscape in my yard, and I live here in South Florida. And after 3 hours of working in 95, 100-degree weather, I was exhausted. But I'm also like 52 years old. So I was counting it off to just getting older and not being able to sustain landscaping, because that's one of the things I love to do. It's one of the things I was doing through high school all the way through my getting married and buying my first house, because I used those extra money to do, to pay for the wedding and pay for, a down payment on our house. But the phrase he put it on me just immediately snapped me back into, wow, I could have caught it, but I could have missed it in such a degree that I would have been so far down the rabbit hole. Because once you start getting symptoms, chances are, the little metastases that I have in there, that some of them are a few centimeters, some are, but they're not growing at a rapid rate. Might have been much bigger and a much lower chance of trying to tackle it and reverse it. So I was grateful for that. I was grateful for having that conversation with my brother-in-law. I was grateful for that perspective of showing me a different lens and a different viewpoint. It reminds me that I one of the things I've done since I've had cancer, I've told this, told everybody, and I kind of like went back and forth. Do I socialize this? Do I put it out? Do I post it on Facebook? Do I put it out there, or do I just live with it, within myself and within my immediate family and friends? And I was like, what the heck with it? Let's get all the prayers we can. Let's get all the opportunities we can to heal. And I went ahead and posted it right out of the gate. And the overwhelming response of people talking about how I was meant to beat it because of my positive attitude and things, and the influence I had on people I didn't even realize, just on how I go about my normal day. In fact, some of the accolades of being, the most inspirational person that they've ever met, it's kind of overwhelming. It was very humbling. It wasn't something that, I felt I deserved, to be frank with you. The accolades that I received and I continue to receive, just on trying to be genuine, the genuine me, the person that I always want to be. But I'm grateful for people willing to share that, because it does, it does motivate you to keep working at it. So thank you to all the people who, provided that feedback and that support. It's been extremely helpful. But I keep getting on a side tangent, and that might happen because I usually in a crowd I won't talk very much, but if I'm doing a presentation or doing a training, I tend to talk a lot. So it's going to be nice to have guests where I can listen, because that's one of my favorite things to do, is to listen to other people. So this story of when I was told that I had cancer from the doctor who did my colonoscopy. Back to my wife and I rescheduled it, and we rescheduled it for the same day. So I was like, oh, listen, I'll drop you off an hour ahead of time, and then I'll have somebody drop me off, and then we'll have somebody pick us up. So separately, because she was an hour ahead of mine, and she was actually getting it. It was at the Cleveland Clinic. And she was getting in a different part of the Cleveland Clinic than I was getting. Maybe, I don't know whether there's a female colonoscopy section and a male colonoscopy, I don't know. But it turns out we weren't in the same location. We were in two different distinct locations within the same hospital. And, I was checking in on her. So when I was getting my prep work done, I was like, oh, how's my wife doing? So on and so forth. And they were giving me updates on her. Oh, she's going in. Oh, she's out. She's recovering. I was like, okay. And I was like, okay, Brian, we're going to go in. We're going to give you the anesthesia. We're going to get you out there. Next thing you know, you're in there. You get knocked out. It's amazing. How fast that works. And then when you wake up, you're not really groggy. It's amazing. You kind of snap out of it real fast. So I was expecting my wife to be home recovering from hers. And I was expecting to come out and I was going to have a clean bill of health. I was going to come out and I was going to be like, hey, everything's good. We got rid of some polyps and we got rid of this thing and we got rid of that thing. So, come back in 5 years or 10 years. There's no colon cancer in my family. It's not something that we have. So there wasn't any expectations to have something. And I wake up to my wife holding my hand. Because when she woke up, the nurses and the doctors said, hey, do you want to go down and be there when your husband wakes up? And she said, yes, actually I do want to do that. And she could have gone home, right? It's like, oh, no, it's okay. We already planned this and we have somebody picking me up and so on and so forth. But she said yes. And I wake up to my wife holding my hand. And it was so beautiful just to have that experience that allowed me the opportunity, and I'm sorry what's going on in the background. So I close that down, get a little crazy. But to have that experience almost romanticized it, because the doctor came in and told me the bad news while my wife was there. And as he was telling me I had cancer, my reaction was surprising to me because I'm looking at the doctor, he's explaining it and showing me the screenshot and like, this is what it looks like, this is your cancer, this is your tumor. And I didn't have a moment of woe. I didn't have a woe is me moment, why me? I didn't have any sadness or anger or I had calmness, you know. I went back in my mind to immediately go back and all the good things that happened in my life and all the blessings that I had and the wonderful life I've lived. I'm 52 at the moment, you know, and I've had friends that died much younger than me. So I was grateful. You know, obviously the news was something of concern, but I was grateful for my life is what I was grateful for. You know, and then I had to look at my wife. And that's when I got the worry. And the worry wasn't about me. You know, because when you have cancer, the burden's not on you. The burden's on the family members, the people who might go on living after you. You know, that's who carries the burden. And my son at the time was only 15. So, you know, that was weighing on my mind. I think it kind of came in after the fact. So the whole story in my head, and it may sound weird, was this love story or this romance story of the intimacy of that moment of waking up and having my wife holding my hand that woke me up. To the news being there and the fact that she decided to stay even after she had her colonoscopy and the plan was completely different. And they didn't tell her why they wanted her to come down. They just said, hey, would you like to go and be there? So she didn't know there was anything to be concerned about. And she, the love of my life, went ahead and said, yeah, no, I'd love to be there for him. And I could have been by myself. I know what couple schedules a colonoscopy together? So within tragedy, if your eyes are open, there are going to be some blessings in there somewhere. Sometimes it's hard to see. Sometimes it may take days, months, years. I saw mine right away, and I'm lucky to have had that experience. So I'm hoping that as we build this relationship together, you know, once I figure out the pod model and how to subscribe, and I've had friends that want to subscribe to this, I told them I was doing it. We'll get into, you know, other things and other methods and other stories. And again, not just me, but friends, family members, interesting people that I meet along the way that show me a different lens, because I'm always trying to look at things through multiple lenses. Because how can you relate to a multitude of different people if you're just showing them where you're coming from? You know, the best way to help people is to find out where they're coming from, and then try and figure out a way to talk through that lens to them. And I'll have samples of that, and I'll have stories of that, you know, in future podcasts. So, and that kind of leads into the sales part of my world. I've been in sales for, I guess, all my life. When before I got into the mortgage industry in '91, I was in men's retail sales. Before I was in men's retail sales, I became a manager at my friend's landscaping company. He was our neighbor, and him and his brother had a landscaping company, and we landscaped from 15 on. And I focus on one of the things, and I attribute this to my dad and my mom. I'm a big work ethic person. You know, work harder than everybody else, and good things are going to happen for you. And you know, maybe you don't have the resume, maybe you don't have the accolades, maybe you don't have this, but if they give you the foot in the door, work harder than everybody else around you. And you'll find that opportunity starts finding you. So from a sales perspective, I always had that interesting opportunity to speak to strangers, get their vibe, and try and figure out where they're coming from and what lens they're looking through, and then trying to talk to them through that lens. And it's a work in progress. It's always a work in progress. Like I said, with my brother-in-law, he gave me a perspective that I didn't even think about. I was just looking at things from my world, and he real fast. Well, maybe they wouldn't have found it, and you'd have to wait 10 years, and it could have been tragic, or greater tragedy than what might be perceived as a tragedy that I'm going through now. So, all these accolades and wonderful things are going to be important to share. I've been asked by multiple people multiple times. Some people ask me, Brian, why aren't you why don't you have a motivational speaker? I kind of, never thought about a path like that. I like what I do. I like real estate. I like helping out friends and families and business partners be successful. It's something that's fulfilling for me, helping other people. And especially when you're going through situations like I'm particularly going through, where you have this personal fight that you're going through. Best way to focus your energy and maintain it positive is help others. Turn that opportunity outward, and be genuine about it. Care, that they succeed at their task. Allow them the opportunity to thrive and be grateful in their thriving, even if it's not something that benefits you, especially if it's something that doesn't benefit you. So when we start talking, in the podcast, and we'll get into some sales opportunities, sometimes we'll talk a bit about the real estate and mortgage industry, because there are a lot of lessons within that. Doing it for over 33 years. There's ups, there's downs, there's reinventing yourself, there's finding opportunity where there's none, or leading people through opportunity where there's perceivably none. This is an interesting time in the real estate industry. And again, I have a lot of agents that I engage with on a regular basis that are friends of mine, and they have their head down. These are tough times in the real estate industry for many, where they have 10 or 15 transactions in a year, and they're dealing with 5 or 4 or 5. And they're trying to find a way, and they have their head down. So I'm working through some campaigns, some training with them to get their head up, because there's never a bad opportunity in real estate. It's whether you're within that opportunity or you're looking through it from the lens of the consumer and finding a way to engage them in that space. So we'll have more of that. In my world, on the mortgage side, people are, well, the interest rates are high. And my perspective in 91 is, well, my first refinance for somebody is I refinanced with a 9.5 from 13. So the fact that we're at, 6.75 today is a great rate, So I have a perspective because of the longevity of it. But anybody who got in the mortgage industry 3 years ago, but the rates were 3%, and we can only survive if they're 3%. It's like, no, there's always going to be people that are buying and selling real estate. They're going to be trading real estate. They're going to be, families going to grow, families going to decrease. People need to move closer to work, move to a community that has better school systems, relocate across the country for a job. There's always going to be real estate to trade. And you just have to have that mindset. In my last couple of classes, the first thing I asked for is it a great time to buy and sell real estate? And you'd be surprised how many people didn't raise their hand, because they're looking at it from this day and this moment. And maybe the reluctancies of sellers to not try and get the best purchase price in their community when, and the market might have peaked for them in that community. Or the buyers that they're engaged with said, I want to wait for the rates to drop. There are strategies that are out there that you don't have to wait on interest rates, and you have to wait on it, with open inventory. You just have to have a way to educate your consumers and look through it from their lens and find out what's their actual reason that they want to do what they want to do. And once you find that out, you find the need for them, then you can have a conversation. That conversation, it depends on the circumstances, but now you're actually in the time frame of being helpful. So take that with whatever grain of salt or opportunity that you have going on in your world, and maybe you're not in sales and maybe you're not in real estate. But in life, these same principles apply, in whatever you do. So for my first episode, I'm going to end it there. I'm going to always ask you to do two things for me. One, find an opportunity to make somebody smile today. Use my phrase if you like. I'm feeling super fantastic, awesome. When somebody asks you how you're doing, might not be first thing that pops up in your mind, but I promise you, if you say it often enough, that you kind of walk yourself into feeling more positive, because you're going to see somebody else and you're going to help somebody else get there. And that's going to lift you up. And number two, count your blessings. With every given day, if you're paying attention to the details, you're going to find 10 things that you're grateful for. You're going to find 10 things that matter. You're going to find 10 things that are more important than the circumstances that presented themselves that day. So with that, I want to thank you for joining me on my first podcast. God bless. And I look forward to talking to you in the next one. Have a super fantastic, awesome day.